Let us begin where pride resists and memory stings, at the moment of defeat, the deal that collapsed, the exam you failed, the venture that drained your savings. In that instant, it feels final. It feels like a verdict, but what if it is not a sentence, only a signal? Adversity arrives without invitation. It does not consult your schedule. It does not soften its blow for your convenience. It exposes weakness publicly and tests resolve privately. And in that pressure, something critical happens. Interpretation is chosen. One man says, "This proves I am not capable." Another says, "This reveals what I must correct." The event is identical. The outcome is not. Interpretation becomes destiny long before circumstance does. You have likely faced a setback that left you questioning your direction. Perhaps you withdrew. Perhaps you blamed. Perhaps you promised to try again later. That response was not weakness. It was untrained reaction. Defeat wounds the ego. It confronts your self-image. It reveals blind spots you preferred not to see. Most people rush to escape that discomfort. They seek distraction instead of instruction. But discomfort contains data. Hidden inside every failure is a lesson specific to you about your preparation, your timing, your judgment, your discipline. If you refuse to examine it, you repeat it. If you dissect it, you transform it. There is a law operating here, whether acknowledged or not. Every adversity carries within it the seed of an equivalent advantage. That seed is not visible while emotion dominates. It must be cultivated through deliberate thought. Emotion clouds analysis. Pride resists correction. Fear whispers retreat. If you obey those impulses, defeat becomes permanent. If you pause and inquire, defeat becomes fuel. Consider steel. It is strengthened in fire, not in comfort. So too is character. Pressure refines what ease never touches. Have you noticed how clarity often follows loss? After the shock subsides, perspective sharpens. You see flaws in your strategy you once ignored. You recognize warnings you dismissed. That awareness is priceless. Most men never extract it. They prefer to label the event as bad luck and move on. But luck rarely repeats in identical patterns. Weakness does. Adversity is the mirror that reveals structural cracks. Without it, you might continue building on unstable foundations. With it, you have the chance to rebuild stronger. The difference between ruin and rise is rarely the magnitude of the defeat. It is the quality of the response. There are those who encounter failure and retreat permanently. They adjust their ambitions downward. They protect themselves from future pain by lowering standards. They call it realism. It is resignation. Then there are those who encounter failure and grow restless. They study the event. They refine their approach. They adjust their plan, but not their purpose. That restlessness becomes energy. You may believe some defeats are irreversible: financial loss, public embarrassment, broken partnerships. Yet history shows that many who rose highest did so after their lowest collapse. Why? Because collapse stripped illusion. Illusion is comfortable. It tells you you are prepared when you are not. It tells you your plan is flawless when it contains weakness. Adversity removes illusion swiftly. When illusion falls, clarity emerges. Clarity enables correction. Correction enables growth. This sequence is rarely pleasant, but it is powerful. Let me ask you directly, what was your last defeat teaching you that you refused to learn? Where did pride interrupt analysis? Where did emotion silence strategy? If you revisit that moment without self-pity, you may discover leverage hidden in plain sight. Adversity also tests persistence. It asks whether your desire is surface level or burning. When obstacles arise, do you reinterpret your aim, or do you recommit to it with greater precision? Burning desire does not evaporate under pressure. It intensifies. There is a transformation available in defeat. It shifts your identity from victim to strategist. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you ask, "How can this strengthen me?" That question alone reclaims authority. Authority builds confidence. Confidence builds resilience. Resilience builds momentum. And momentum converts loss into progress. In this lesson, you will learn how to analyze defeat without internalizing it as identity, how to separate the event from your worth, how to convert emotional shock into structured evaluation. You will learn to identify the precise lesson embedded in your setback and extract it deliberately. You will also learn why those who fear adversity remain fragile, while those who expect it become formidable. Because adversity is not an interruption to the path of success, it is part of it. You cannot build endurance without resistance. You cannot develop wisdom without correction. You cannot cultivate depth without pressure. The next time defeat strikes, and it will, remember this, the event is neutral until interpreted. You may allow it to define you, or you may allow it to refine you. Within every setback lies potential energy. Most never unlock it because they rush past reflection. Do not rush. Study it, extract it, use it, profit by defeat. For hidden within your greatest loss may be the exact discipline your next triumph requires. Let us begin at the precise instant the blow lands. The letter arrives, the investor declines, the partnership dissolves, the examination returns marked with red ink. In that first breath after impact, defeat does not feel instructional. It feels final. It feels like judgment. It feels as though the world has rendered a verdict upon your ability. And that is the first danger. The event itself is not the permanent wound. The interpretation is there exists a critical difference between saying, "I failed at this attempt," and declaring, "I am a failure." One describes an event, the other defines an identity. Yet in the moment of shock, pride is injured. The mind, unsettled, fuses the two. The ego does not enjoy exposure. It prefers the illusion of competence. When adversity reveals weakness publicly, pride recoils. It demands explanation. It seeks immediate relief. Some men respond by blame. They point toward circumstance, toward partners, toward timing. Others retreat. They shrink their aim so that no similar wound can strike again. Both reactions are understandable. Both are costly. The disciplined response begins not with blame or retreat, but with separation. Separate the event from the self. Edwin C. Barnes was rejected repeatedly before standing in partnership with Edison. Had he interpreted rejection as proof of incapacity, his story would have ended in obscurity. Instead, he interpreted it as part of the path. The event did not define him. His decision about the event did. Adversity wounds pride because it exposes reality. It reveals where preparation was thin, where planning was flawed, where confidence exceeded competence. Most men rush to cover that exposure. They protect pride by lowering ambition. That is how years are lost. 10 years may vanish the moment you quietly decide, perhaps I'm not meant for this. That thought feels modest. It feels realistic. Yet it is rarely accurate. It is wounded pride seeking safety. The man who rises after defeat performs a different act. He allows the emotion to settle. He refuses to attach identity to the incident. He says, "This failed. I remain." That distinction restores authority. Composure in the face of loss is visible strength. Others observe it carefully. They see whether you collapse inward or stand steady. They see whether you dissolve into self-pity or step into reflection. Authority grows not in victory alone, but in response to setback. The first discipline after defeat is silence of self-condemnation. Do not rehearse the narrative of inadequacy. Do not speak in terms that shrink your worth. Speak only in terms of analysis. I misjudged. I underestimated. I must refine. These are statements of growth. They preserve identity while acknowledging error. Remember this clearly. Defeat is an event. It is not a verdict unless you declare it so. When steel is struck, it does not announce weakness, it reveals it. The strike is diagnostic. Without it, hidden cracks remain unseen. The strike is painful, yet useful. So it is with adversity. The man who refuses to internalize defeat saves himself from unnecessary retreat. He does not deny the loss. He studies it. He does not mask the mistake. He examines it. In doing so, he preserves his ambition intact. Imagine how different your life might have unfolded had you separated every setback from your self-worth. How many ambitions were abandoned not because they were impossible, but because the first failure felt personal. That is where years disappear. If you would save 10 years, adopt this principle immediately. I am greater than this event. I learn from it, but I do not become it. Affirm daily. My worth is constant. My results are adjustable. I refine my methods, not my identity. Repeat until the words feel steady. There will be future setbacks. That is certain. When they arrive, your first task will not be correction. It will be separation. Separate the happening from the self. Once separated, you regain calm. Once calm, you regain analysis. Once analysis begins, growth follows. The majority never reach that stage because they allow emotion to conclude the story prematurely. They interpret shock as sentence. They internalize error as destiny. Do not. The difference between those who remain fallen and those who rise is rarely the size of the defeat. It is the speed with which they refuse false identity. The event occurred. You remain. Stand there and study it, refine, move again. For in that refusal to accept a temporary event as permanent identity lies the first transformation of adversity into fuel. There exists a law so consistent that it operates whether believed or denied. Every adversity carries within it the seed of an equivalent advantage. That seed is not visible at first glance. It is buried beneath emotion, pride, disappointment, and often embarrassment. To the undisciplined mind, defeat appears barren. To the trained mind, it appears instructive. Emotion clouds vision. Immediately after loss, the mind is unsettled. Pride stings. Fear whispers retreat. In that state, advantage cannot be seen. It must be uncovered deliberately. The first act after separation of identity from event is examination. Ask without bitterness what precisely failed. Was it preparation, timing, judgment, discipline, association, communication? Do not generalize. Be specific. Most men label defeat bad luck and move forward unchanged. Luck rarely repeats with identical patterns. Weakness does. Consider the illustration of the man who dug for gold and stopped 3 feet from the vein. His equipment was sound. His effort was sincere. His retreat was premature. The defeat contained the lesson of persistence. That lesson, once learned, later produced fortune in another field. The advantage was hidden inside the error. Had he declared himself incapable and withdrawn permanently, the lesson would have been lost. Instead, he extracted it. Defeat exposes structural cracks in your design. Without it, you might continue building upon weakness until collapse becomes catastrophic. Adversity is diagnostic. It reveals overconfidence. It reveals impatience. It reveals insufficient study. It reveals flawed alliances. It reveals shallow desire. The man who studies defeat without self-pity grows sharper. His judgment improves. His awareness deepens. His strategy strengthens. Others observe this growth. They notice that he does not complain about circumstance. He corrects himself. That habit builds trust. Trust builds opportunity. 20 years can be saved by learning one lesson thoroughly instead of repeating it unconsciously. Most men repeat failure in cycles because they refuse to extract its instruction fully the first time. Examine your most recent setback. What warning signs preceded it? What assumptions proved inaccurate? Where did enthusiasm override caution? Where did caution override boldness? The answers are rarely flattering, yet they are invaluable. Every defeat contains improvement instructions specific to you. They are tailored, they are precise. If ignored, they return. Adversity returns lessons unlearned. That is why some men experience the same collapse repeatedly. The lesson waits patiently until acknowledged. When you extract instruction deliberately, defeat loses its sting and gains its purpose. Affirm daily, within this setback lies my next advancement. I examine carefully, I correct boldly, I grow deliberately. Repeat until analysis becomes natural. The seed of advantage does not sprout automatically. It requires cultivation through thought. Emotion demands sympathy. Discipline demands strategy. Choose strategy. The majority rush past reflection because discomfort lingers there. They prefer distraction. They label the event unfortunate and proceed unchanged. The few who pause and dissect alter their trajectory permanently. Imagine saving 20 years by learning one principle thoroughly, instead of relearning it painfully across decades. Imagine avoiding repetition of identical errors because you extracted their root cause immediately. This is how adversity becomes fuel. It sharpens perception. It corrects weakness. It strengthens preparation. It deepens resolve. Loss without analysis is waste. Loss with analysis is tuition. You have paid the tuition. Do not leave without the lesson, for hidden within your defeat is a blueprint for refinement that no success would have revealed. Study it carefully, extract its seed, plant it in disciplined correction, and allow what wounded you to instruct you. In doing so, you convert adversity from a blow into leverage, and leverage, applied wisely, multiplies power. There's a condition more dangerous than defeat. It is uninterrupted comfort. Comfort soothes ambition into softness. It creates the illusion of strength without ever testing it. It allows flaws to remain hidden because no strain exposes them. Steel is not strengthened in ease, it is strengthened in fire. So too is character. Pressure reveals what comfort conceals. Under strain, impatience surfaces. Under loss, fear emerges. Under criticism, insecurity appears. These qualities may have existed long before adversity arrived, but they were unnoticed. Adversity strips illusion quickly. When a venture collapses, when criticism arrives publicly, when resources tighten, you meet yourself honestly. Not the version polished for admiration, but the version tested in difficulty. Many retreat from this encounter. They prefer comfort's illusion to pressure's truth. Yet the man who remains under examination grows formidable. Consider the builders who endured early bankruptcies. Their later steadiness did not arise from uninterrupted success. It arose from surviving collapse without surrendering purpose. The fire hardened them. Public embarrassment, though painful, becomes instruction. It teaches humility. It teaches preparation. It teaches the discipline of measured speech and deliberate action. The man who has faced humiliation and continued is difficult to intimidate. He has already survived exposure. Others sense this. They observe composure where once there might have been panic. They notice calm under strain. They trust the man who has endured. Authority born of comfort is fragile. Authority born of pressure is durable. Under strain, decision sharpens. You cannot indulge endless contemplation when resources tighten. You must act decisively. That decisiveness repeated becomes habit. Habit becomes character. Character becomes influence. The majority attempt to avoid adversity. In doing so, they avoid refinement. They remain brittle. The first major shock shatters them because they never developed resilience gradually. Better to encounter manageable defeat early and grow strong than to experience catastrophic collapse later without preparation. 10 years may be saved by embracing early hardship as training rather than punishment. 20 by refusing to retreat when pressure mounts. 30 by becoming formidable through repeated refinement. Ask yourself, where has comfort made you complacent? Where has ease dulled vigilance? Adversity restores alertness. Affirm daily. Pressure strengthens me. Difficulty refines me. I emerge harder, clearer, stronger. Repeat until adversity no longer feels like an enemy. The man who expects only comfort becomes fragile. The man who expects challenge becomes prepared. Prepared men do not fear difficulty, they utilize it. Every blow that does not break you strengthens the instrument through which you act. The steel that survives fire is superior to steel never tested. Your trials are not interruptions to your growth. They are the forge in which growth occurs. Stand in the heat long enough to learn. Refine rather than retreat. Allow pressure to remove illusion and reveal strength, for in refinement lies authority, and in authority lies lasting success. The world respects those who endure. Endure intelligently, and emerge sharpened. There comes a moment in every worthy pursuit when adversity does not merely challenge your plan, it challenges your desire. The setback asks a question that comfort never asks. How deeply do you truly want this? Many men believe they possess ambition until resistance appears. In ease, desire feels strong. In difficulty, its depth is revealed. Casual interest evaporates under strain. Definite purpose intensifies. Adversity is the instrument that measures seriousness. It exposes whether your aim was a preference or a commitment. When opposition arises, do you reinterpret your goal downward, or do you refine your approach upward? This is the dividing line. The temptation after defeat is subtle. It does not always say, quit. It says, perhaps this is not necessary. It whispers, you may aim lower and live more comfortably. It invites you to reduce the magnitude of your ambition so that future pain feels unlikely. This reduction feels reasonable. It appears mature. In truth, it is surrender disguised as adjustment. Refinement is wise. Reduction is costly. When a man lowers his aim to avoid future discomfort, he begins the quiet erosion of potential. The world does not shrink his ambition. He shrinks it himself. Consider the man who stopped digging 3 feet from gold. The lesson was not about minerals, it was about persistence. When resistance appeared, he interpreted it as finality rather than test. Later, applying that lesson in another field, he refused to retreat and prospered. Resistance clarifies seriousness. If your desire fades under pressure, it was never burning. If it strengthens, you have discovered its depth. The disciplined response to adversity is not blind stubbornness. It is intelligent recommitment. Study the failure, correct the weakness, but preserve the purpose. Purpose is the anchor. Plans are adjustable. Many men abandon the aim when the plan falters. They confuse method with mission. This confusion costs decades. 10 years may be lost reducing standards prematurely. 20 lowering ambition to protect pride. 30 surrendering to comfort when resistance appeared.